That's I think, big offseason question mark for Iowa is, can somebody emerge into a star back there? You think of the last however many seasons, you've had a pretty doggone good corner or a pretty doggone good safety roaming around back there, NFL guys. And does Iowa have that guy right now? Xavier Wampa, right? I mean, that's a 5-star kid coming in and again has flashed in spurts. I think back to was that his initial start in the bowl game versus Kentucky? I'm trying to think if he started that game. He definitely, I think he did, but at any rate, played a lot that day. And boom, what happens? He gets a pick six in his first serious action for Iowa. And kind of we haven't seen a ton of that since from Xavier Wampa. Maybe the time is now for him to turn that next corner and morph into a star for Iowa. That is going to be, I think, a big key for this defense to get back to sort of, and not that Iowa was a bad defense a season ago, but I think that most would say that it wasn't up to the recent standard of Hawkeye defensive football. So for Iowa to get back there, Chris, then probably a Xavier Wampa needs to take a big step forward. Cohen Intringer, Zach Lutmer. I mean, it's some of those names at safety. And then the guys we're talking about at cornerback, whether it is TJ Hall, if it's Deshaun Lee, or if it's let's go shop and find a corner that can really help us. Somebody needs to emerge and become a star for this defensive backfield because I don't know that Iowa has it as we sit here today. Doesn't mean that they can't find it, but as we sit here today, I don't know that they have that guy.
And you hit it on the nail, man. Like I said, it's still a good defense, just not top 5, top 10 worthy, which is what we got accustomed to seeing. We got greedy with it. But, Xavier Wamka, don't forget, he was before the season, in the preseason, he was looked at as a legitimate NFL prospect. You're looking at somebody that was expected to enter the draft at the end of the season and be top 3-4 round player. He had a letdown season that kind of hurt him. And we should be thankful that in this new day and age of NIL and transfer portal, we should be very grateful, regardless of his bad season, or I won't say bad, down season, that he's coming back to Iowa, that he still trusts Phil Parker, still trusts Coach Ferentz. He has it in him. He still is an NFL-bound, defensive back. He's still that guy. He can still be good. It's okay to have a down season. It happens. But I truly believe that he's going to bounce back and be the defensive anchor that we need. He's going to be an amazing player. He has the potential. He has the intangibles. And he's going to do what he has to do to get better, especially with Coach Ferentz, knowing his potential. Xavier Wamka was a 5-star coming out of high school, and he chose Iowa. He chose Iowa for a reason, and he's still here after 4 years. You don't think that Coach Ferentz appreciates that loyalty in today's day and age and wants to push him to be the best he can be? And that's what's going to happen. He's going to come back, and he's really going to help us get back to the defensive standard that, Hawkeye fans have been accustomed to seeing for however many years. It's been a long time, so I have a lot of faith in him.
You want to see that loyalty get rewarded too, right? Mm-hmm. It would be so great to see. And I don't want it to come across like Xavier Wampa's been bad. He hasn't been bad, right? A couple of plays. Look, I know this is probably not what Iowa fans always want to hear, but look, Iowa State had some pretty good receivers a season ago, and they're going to make some guys look foolish every once in a while. And I think that moment comes to mind, right? The defensive bust late in the Iowa State game in the second half. That was not a great moment, but doesn't mean that he can't become that 5-star in this final go around in Iowa City. What about linebacker? How do you feel Iowa is positioned there going into this season? Obviously, you've had a great lineage of backers, especially here of late when you think about what Jack Campbell was able to do. And man, Jay Higgins, does he get enough credit for how great he was biding his time in true Hawkeye fashion, right? Mm-hmm. Bides his time and then steps in, and he's one of the best, maybe was the best linebacker naturally for a couple of seasons. Nick Jackson, Iowa is pretty picky, pretty choosy. They don't just go out and spend and let's go get every single transfer portal player that we can. They don't get too wild with it. But one of the big ones, of course, was Nick Jackson, and they were rewarded in a big way with what he brought to the Hawkeyes. Now you're moving on here from both. That is an interesting part of this defense. I'm not going to count Phil Parker or Seth Wallace or this Hawkeye defensive staff out to go and plug and replace those guys. But, man, that's a lot of production that they're looking to replace there.
Ton, man. I mean, you can't name the last time two linebackers of those qualities are leaving at the same time. That definitely leaves a big hole for us, especially losing Jay Higgins is, first of all, that's huge. That you could argue that's the biggest loss this season with him or Caleb Johnson. You could really argue that. And when he's done, I got to shout him out, man, because he should have been a finalist for the linebacker of the year award. I don't know how he wasn't a finalist. That irked all Hawkeye fans. I saw Twitter explode over that. He deserved all that recognition and should have been a two-time winner, in my opinion. I may be a little biased with it, but Nick Jackson, too. Shout out him because he didn't even get invited to the draft combine, and that's a shame. What he's done I believe he has the second most tackles in all time in college football, something of that nature. He's a legit prospect just because he's on the older side of prospects, so to say. He's a NFL-bound guy. And so those two got really disrespected, but Hawkeye fans know how much they mean to the team, how much they mean to the game, what great players they are, and they're going to go on and do amazing things with their careers. But we can't forget that Jay Higgins was not a top prospect coming out of high school. He was a 3-star. He developed into the player he became. Again, as part of the player is you got to want it, you got to put in that work. The other part is the coach's part in doing that. We iterated it the whole show. Kirk Ferentz knows how to develop guys, and a defense, I mean, with our reputation, I don't doubt that. For right now we got Jaden Harrell and Carson Shire. I don't know how to say his last name. But Shire, yes. Forgive me for that. But I believe that, they're going to come in. They're going to be ready. And like I said, there's no time for pities, no time for worry. We have to be optimistic as we can about the situation until they prove us wrong. Now, I believe those guys are going to step in. Can they be what Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson were? That's a long to big stretch. But can they come in and produce and be just enough for us to be a great defense again? I believe so. I believe in Phil Parker. I believe in Kirk Ferentz. And that's all we can do. Just you got to believe them. So I believe those two will come in. And I'm sure they're looking at linebackers in the portal and looking at Jack Campbell, Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson, the linebackers we sent to the league recently. You got some. I'm sure you got some top linebackers that are, looking at Iowa with a side eye. Thinking about coming to Iowa City, even though how cold it is. They're going to bypass the weather.
What are you talking about? That's how you get a big money contract down the road, baby. That's AFC North, NFC North football right there. Somebody got to go play in the AFC North and the NFC North, right? I mean, come on. Somebody got to get out there and go be a backer in those conditions. Why not Big Ten football in Iowa City? That's where, come on, man. That's where real professionals are carved. And you know what? Even if you don't play in those divisions, you're going to have to play there once or twice if you're a professional. So might as well come be a backer with the Hawkeyes. One thing defensively, Chris, that is good news for the secondary. It's good news for these backers is the defensive line, I think, has the chance for the Hawkeyes to be very, very stout. Once again, you start thinking about Max Llewellyn is somebody that's made some plays for them. Aaron Graves, Pittman coming back, Ethan Herkett, Anderson, a younger guy that, you'll be called upon. Kenneth Merriweather, same sort of story there. It's time to elevate and jump into that mix. But, man, they've got some serious production coming back. If we're talking about everything that they're losing, the defensive line is something that should make life a lot easier for those backers trying to get downhill and fill holes.
Oh yeah, you got to feel the most confident defensive line. I remember against Nebraska because this was a game where they didn't shake our hands. Max Llewellyn came up with a huge fumble, and I believe he recovered it too. That setup, I believe, it set up Drew Stevens for the game-winning field goal. I just remember that, and I remember thinking, man, if he comes back next year, he has a chance to, like I said, that little window of potential. He has a chance to be someone very impactful for the Hawkeyes next year. He could be one of our best players in the whole team next year. I truly believe that. Aaron Graves is huge. We all know what he means to us. Ethan Herkett, getting him back too. I'm just glad that not a ton of key players have left the Hawkeyes, especially on the defensive end in terms of transfer portal. It's saying a lot. So when you got guys like those coming back that are committed to Hawkeye football and still want to be, still want to produce and try to be a defense that, we're used to being, You got to feel confident, and it starts up front. It starts with the pressure you're able to put on up front on the quarterback. So to retain all those guys, it's a sweet feeling.
So we're running out of real estate. We got a long ways to go yet on this Monday evening in April and a short time to get there. I'm Josh Helmer. He's Chris Meglio. We are your host on this, the inaugural Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. And thank you, Iowa fans, for being here, for hanging out with us on a Monday night, for chopping it up, talking a little Hawkeye football, basketball, you name it, right here. We're going to be doing this every Monday night for the most part, unless we have to swap schedules around on a given week. 6 o'clock Monday nights with us talking Iowa Hawkeyes. And again, just very thankful for the opportunity to be here on the Voice of College Football. Obviously, Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live, the team for giving us a chance to do this, and then for all of you for hanging out with us.